What's going on, everybody? The Ball Don't Lie boys are back and better than ever. This time at 6 p.m. is officially the start of free agency. And Matt, I can't think of one place better to be than to get your latest NBA news here on Ball Don't.
Is Hunter frozen? He's definitely frozen.
All right, it might just be here. It might just be me right now here on the stream. Hopefully, we can get Matt in soon right now. But anyways, though, we got a whole lot going on. We're gonna be locked into our phones, listening to all the rumors and stuff going around right now. Matt's gonna hop in really quickly here. But let us know in the comments what you guys want to see, what we want to talk about. And here we got Matt Szczypiorski back in the flesh. But Matt, we were talking right before the show started. Chris Haynes reported that the Kyle Lowry to Miami Heat is basically a done deal. So I guess, let's assume that it's probably going to happen. Hopefully we can break the contract details or the sign trade details. But how do you think Kyle Lowry would fit with Miami?
I think he's been a great fit with Miami personally. I think they've needed that point guard presence there since Jimmy Butler's been there. Goran Dragic is just getting up there in age, and he's obviously younger than Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry's a bit productive player, especially at his age. He's more of a Chris Paul type, probably not as good as Chris Paul, but definitely Chris Paul type for this team. Free agents are already loading in here.
Yeah, our phones are just going to be blowing up this entire time here. But Kyle Lowry, that's a big boy move for the Miami Heat. I absolutely agree with you, Matt. Goran Dragic, let's give the man the credit where it's due. He was a big reason why Miami was able to go to the bubble or go to the finals in the bubble. I believe he was a leading scorer for them in that Indiana Pacers series where they swept. They got Nate McMillan fired, which now seems like a big mistake that the Indiana Pacers made, letting McMillan go. But Rick Carlisle should do a pretty good job there. But anyways, though, Goran Dragic and Precious Achiuwa, that's sounding like what the trade package is going to be. Might be some picks involved as well. But Miami Heat, they probably, I would say, had a disappointing season last year, Matt. But bringing Kyle Lowry to pair with Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, where do you think that's going to help them in the Eastern Conference?
Well, I think it'll definitely place them in a better situation than they were last year. They really struggled throughout the beginning of the season, really struggling. Then towards the end of the season, limping towards the end, obviously getting swept by the Milwaukee Bucks. Not the ending that you want, especially at the NBA Finals appearance the year before. I think they just realized that they couldn't just run it back like they worked in the bubble. I think they realized they needed some veteran players, more veteran presence to help out Jimmy Butler on this team.
Yep. And we're definitely going to talk about Kyle Lowry later because, like you said, Matt, a lot is happening right now. My phone is blowing up. I don't even know where to start. I think the biggest domino might be the Lonzo Ball move. It's funny. I really wish we had the soundbite, Matt, but I remember you and me talking about on Ball Don't Lie how Lonzo would be a really good fit with the Chicago Bulls next to Zach LaVine there. And it's looking like that's going to happen because he's going to sign a 4-year, $85 million contract with the Chicago Bulls. I don't know about you, but I'm waiting to see what the signing trade is going to entail in terms of who Chicago's going to give up in return for Lonzo. But Lonzo is, assuming they don't trade Zach LaVine in this one, is going to be a nice running mate. What do you think about that fit there with the Bulls?
Well, I think it's just a great fit because Kobe White is a good player, but I don't think he's necessarily a starter for a playoff team, which is where Chicago wants to be with Zach LaVine, especially if they're going to try to convince him to stay. This is going to be the last year of his contract. Lonzo Ball is a great ball handler, a great facilitator, get LaVine in great situations. The 4-year, $85 million contract. Now, he's restricted his NC, so New Orleans has a chance to match, but I don't imagine they will. Because it's been pretty much in writing for a while. And if it's going to be a sign and trade, they're going to get somebody back. And I just don't know if they have all that money. be thrown around and spend $85 million on Lonzo Ball when, quite frankly, their team was not very good last year with him on the team. I think this is a very exciting fit for Lonzo Ball in Chicago. He was rumored to go there during the middle of the season when he was struggling a bit out of the gate. Chicago was a popular destination for him to go along with the Knicks, but the Bulls really ponying up here. They're bringing out their precious pennies and handing them out to Lonzo Ball early.
Absolutely. And the Bulls right now, them and Zach LaVine are struggling to agree to an extension here. But like we talked about, the Bulls need to build around Zach LaVine. That's their franchise player. They got Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline. They just got a sign and trade with Lonzo Ball here. So this front office is being really aggressive to try to accelerate this rebuild here. The Bulls have struggled. The Chicago Bulls. That was the last time they made it. Was when Jimmy Butler was on the Bulls. That's been a pretty long time. He's played for what, like 3-4 teams since then. So I think that, this is definitely a good move. I think he fits really well. But I wonder, do you think Kobe White actually might be in this trade? Because of course, to get a good player, you have to give up something in return too.
That's true. He could be involved, especially since he is a young player. Might be a good fit in New Orleans. I mean, obviously they're gonna have a point guard hole now with Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo Ball both being out of there. But speaking of Jimmy Butler, breaking news here: the 5-time All-Star is expected to agree to a maximum contract extension with the Heat when the year league opens on August 6th. That's from Shams. He is blowing Woj out of the water here, by the way.
He's been getting them.
Yeah, so
Jimmy
Butler expected to sign an extension, which is weird because this is already going to be his third year on a 4-year deal anyway, so I just are going to give him extra years on top of that. Max money in excess of $184 million. Look at that.
Yep, I was just say Shams also just retweeted his own tweet. That's kind of a flex right there, and gives the freaking numbers too for Jimmy Butler. He's going to be making a whole lot of money, Matt, which he already does. But yeah, Miami Heat are being aggressive here. I guess they know. Again, we'll officially break it, but it sounds like Kyle Lowry will be heading to South Beach to play with Jimmy Butler there. And they're going to try to make a nice group there and see where they can go. Maybe try to make another run at the championship. But some other breaking news here. Tim Hardaway Jr. was expected to stay with the Dallas Mavericks, but now it's official. He'll be there for 4 years, $72 million contract. Matt, it seemed like he was the only one not named Luka Doncic who had a pulse in the playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks. So I definitely agree. I think this was a big sign for the Mavericks to make here.
Yeah, man, I don't know where the Mavericks getting all this money, but they're already ponying up to pay Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, that's not working out too well. But like you said, Tim Hardaway Jr. really earned his paycheck here in a contract year, balled out, probably the best season of his career this past season. Like you said, showed up in the playoffs too as well. If you're going to play with Luka, you got to be able to shoot the ball in the wings, get ready to shoot those three-pointers when he drives the cup, kicks it out. That's exactly what Tim Hardaway did. He's a great fit for Luka. They needed to re-sign him. They got it done. And it's turning out to be more of the Tim Hardaway trade and much less the Kristaps Porzingis trade.
Yeah, team-friendly, too. I think 18 a year for a guy who's a 40% shooter and can create his own shot off the dribble, I think that's actually a pretty nice value. But speaking about Lonzo Ball, Shams just tweeted out again, Thomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, and a second-round pick to New Orleans. That is all they gave up for Lonzo Ball here. I kind of wonder, are the Pelicans – Are they planning on getting a different player here, not from the Bulls, but in free agency? Because they give up on Lonzo Ball for a somewhat fair price for him. I kind of wonder if they think that they can get somebody else, one of the bigger fish on the market.
Yeah, that's kind of a light return, to be honest. We were talking about Kobe White maybe going back.
Like nothing.
That's a light return if we're going to be quite honest there. That's pretty small. That is weird that they're going to – I don't know what they're going to plan on doing in free agency. I guess they could strike while the iron's hot right now because Zion's not on a big max contract yet, which I'm assuming they're going to try to offer him sometime down the road. I'm not really sure what their plan is here. They tried to go all in last year, and that didn't work out. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of moves they try to make here in free agency.
Yeah, and also, too, the Denver Nuggets have been pretty busy as well. They just re-signed both Will Barton and JaMychal Green, two role players there who are pretty solid for them on fairly team-friendly deals. JaMychal Green, 2 years, $17 million, including a player option in the second year. And then also Will Barton, who's been there quite some time as well, I'm trying to find how much money they agreed to because there is all right. There we go. 2 years, $32 million. So they're able to kind of keep that bench there. And Denver, perhaps I actually heard too that Paul Millsap might leave and go to the Warriors. So perhaps that they're preparing to sign their own guys in the event that Millsap leaves.
Yeah, I heard that as well with Millsap. I heard that he was trying to eye up the Warriors. The Warriors could use that big man help. Another breaking thing here. Woj checking in for the first time. He has broken that both Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel are going to back to the New York Knicks on separate 3-year deals. Noel getting $32 million, Burks getting $30 million over 3 years. Knicks trying to keep that core together. They do have a lot of cap space to play with. So it should be interesting to see how they kind of make that work because Nerlens Noel is making a lot of money, or more than probably I would have given him. But Alec Burks, I think, is a good contract for them. He was great off the bench for them last year. He was one of the few Knicks that showed up in the playoffs. Knicks active here early, just re-signing them guys. A lot of guys just re-signing right now, not a lot. Jarrett Allen just re-signed with the Cavs, 5 years, $100 million. Back to the Cavs. This is all stuff that kind of leaked beforehand, but it's just becoming official now. Lot to digest here. What do you think, Hunter?
Yeah, the New York Knicks making it a priority to re-sign their guys. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens to Derrick Rose as well, who I believe some teams have been trying to get him. So we'll see if they're able to keep him there. But yeah, Alec Burks and Noel were two nice complementary pieces. I think what made the Knicks a good team last year was that it was next man up. They lose Mitchell Robinson. Nerlens Noel slides into that starting role. I believe he was up there in like leaders and blocks in the NBA too, and he didn't even start for most of the season. And that was one of the best defenses in basketball. So got to hang your hats in the well. Alec Burks, I think his biggest issue in his career has been staying healthy. He was relatively healthy last year and was able to give him buckets, which is kind of what his role has been since he's entered the NBA. But the Knicks able to retain their guys, I definitely think it's a good thing. This is a team that I kind of wonder too. I believe they have the most cap space in the NBA right now. They do have $53.5 million. I kind of wondered that I think the next big domino to fall right now, Matt, is going to be DeMar DeRozan. And there's rumors that the Bulls were going to make a move at him. Maybe they still do. But there's also rumors that DeMar DeRozan has mutual interest with the New York Knicks. What do you think about him in the Big Apple?
I think that'd be a nice fit for them. They clearly lacked shot creation last year in the playoffs. Once they got to the playoffs, they lacked a guy that could consistently score. Derrick Rose, Alec Burks really showed up, as we said. But those guys were coming off the bench until Derrick Rose ended up starting halfway through that series. They just really struggled to make their own shot. DeMar DeRozan is a proven bucket getter. But what he lacks beyond the arc, he makes up for in the paint and in the mid-range. I think that'd be a good fit for the Knicks, especially with in Tom Thibodeau's offense, Tom Thibodeau's defense. I think he's a good fit there.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, Matt, your Sixers also lost Furkan Korkmaz to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Sorry about that. You sound pretty happy, so maybe that's not a bad thing. But the Knicks, I just saw, still have about $30 million in cap space, so they will be able to get a bigger fish out there as well. So these are, relatively cheap to keep their current free agents that they wanted to keep. Anyways, I think, Matt, we are all caught up with what's happened so far. Is there anything we didn't mention yet that you think is worth mentioning?
I mentioned that the Kyle Lowry deal is official. He is officially on the Heat. I don't know what the sign and trade going back to Miami is yet, but I do know that Lowry is going to sign with the Miami Heat in the sign and trade.
There we go. So, I just saw that too. It's going to be a 3-year deal, a sign and trade with the Raptors. So we'll see who's included in that. Again, we think it might be Goran Dragic and Precious Achiuwa, maybe a pick or two in there because Kyle Lowry is probably going to demand a lot of money. But DeMar for Randall straight up, that's funny. Anyways, though, we kind of expected that to happen anyway. But let's talk about John Collins here. He had a very good playoffs with the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks in general had a really good run in the playoffs. Of course, taking the Bucks to 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, and that was without Trae Young for some of those games. But it seems like that they're having a hard time coming to terms with John Collins. What would you pay John Collins if it was up to you, Matt?
I think John Collins is going to get somewhere in the range of at least $100 million. I think he proved his worth in the playoffs. He played really well for Atlanta. I remember during the middle of the season, he was trying to request a trade, trying to get out of Atlanta. But now here he is trying to stay in Atlanta. He's a restricted free agent. Really played well in the playoffs. Really gelled well with Trae Young. I got to watch it firsthand. It was brutal. He's a ferocious rebounder, ferocious putback dunk guy, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't stay with Atlanta. I know they're far away on contract talks right now, but I would be shocked if he doesn't stay in Atlanta.
Yep. Also, too, Kelly Olynyk signing with the Detroit Pistons. It might be the most irrelevant deal we announced all night.
If that guy's getting $37 million,
$37 million. He's getting double digits.
As if the Pistons didn't sign every big man on the market last year too.
I know why. Yeah, that one I don't get. It's a shame because I actually think that they've made some good moves over the year or so with drafting and Jeremy Grant actually being a pretty damn good basketball player for them. This one I don't get. I'm very confused here. But, yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on that. Looking at John Collins here, I think he's important to keep. I would argue maybe their second-best player on the Hawks. I mean, it's hard to say, but he is young. I do think he's going to get a pretty big contract, and I'm not sure the Hawks are going to want to pay him that much money, but I think what's going to happen is that they're probably going to bite the bullet and do it anyway.
I think they're gonna have no choice because they can't let John Collins walk away. They can't
for nothing either.
They can't start fluffing up free agency early. With Trae Young, obviously just leading to the Eastern Conference Finals this past year. I mean, they want to keep him happy and they want to keep him in Atlanta long term. And the best way to do that is keep the guys that he wants to be there. I can't imagine why he wouldn't want John Collins there. John Collins, I assume, will be back in Atlanta, like I said. Hunter, I don't think he's going to the Spurs, buddy. I'm sorry. I don't think the Spurs, first of all, have the money to make. I mean, I guess they do have the money. But I think whatever, not just Spurs, but whatever team offers John Collins, he is a restricted free agent. I think Atlanta will match it.
Also, too, that I agree. I don't see the Spurs getting John Collins unless the Hawks are ready to get rid of him. I think he's going to stay put in A-Town. But some more news here. I think this was expected, especially after they traded Derek Favors to the Thunder. They were able to re-sign Mike Conley, being the Utah Jazz, for 3 years, $68 million. Definitely a lot more team-friendly than that original contract was. And then T.J. McConnell, a Sixer, I don't know, fan favorite when he was there. He's going to be staying with the Pacers after he had a pretty good year with them as well. Oh, I don't know. Oh, interesting. Apparently, Woj is now reporting that the Conley deal is 3 years, $72.5 million. So there are various opinions on who's right here. There might be some reporter fraud going on right now.
For Mike Conley, I think Mike Conley's trying to believe Woj right now. I mean, he's the one that's signed it.
Yeah, Conley's like, I hope Woj is right.
Yeah, he was probably looking at chance to be like, hope not. But 3 years, $72.5 million is what was reported before 6 o'clock. And Woj is never wrong, so I'm going to trust Woj. I'm going to go with 3 years, $72.5 million. That sounds right. And that's probably the price that you're going to have to pay for a guy like Mike Conley, especially with the way he fit with the Utah Jazz last year. He struggled his first year in Utah, but last year he really made amends for that. Really stepped up, was great in the playoffs, was great during the regular season, as was the rest of that Utah Jazz roster.
Yeah, and he did make his first All-Star appearance last year as well, which I think definitely spoke volumes. He was a guy who I always wanted to see him make at least one All-Star game. I doubt he makes another one, but at least he got that one in there for Utah. And, yeah, it seems like Utah is just trying to maintain their guys that they already have and build off what they had last year. But signing Mike Conley, I think that definitely means that Jazz, this is what you're going to get. I don't see them making many more moves after it because their top 4 or 5 players are getting paid probably the most amount of money that they possibly could.
Well, that's what happens when you sign a guy like Rudy Gobert to that fat of an extension. You're going to be strapped for cash. Donovan Mitchell's obviously getting paid well as well. Listen, I mean, this is what they got, and they were the number 1 seed in the West. Actually, they had the best record in all of the NBA last year. They deserve to run it back. They deserve to have another chance and maybe make another run and maybe making the Western Conference Finals this year. Who knows? Yeah,
but let's talk about a team that was 1 win away from being the best record in basketball, a team that lost in 6 in the NBA Finals, the Phoenix Suns. Of course, their biggest priority in free agency is going to be Chris Paul. He opted out of his $44 million player option, which sounds crazy to say out loud. But that's because he came off one of his better seasons of his career, and he's probably going to look for a long-term deal. Now, the odds that he doesn't sign with the Suns, I think, are pretty slim. I think it's safe to say that the Valley is definitely going to want Chris Paul back. But, Matt, what do you think it's going to take? Because it also sounds like the Suns want to look toward the future and also re-sign DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to have to be probably a contract that's front-loaded. Probably give him somewhere close to that $44 million that he opted out of. Probably give him that in his first year, and then maybe backload the contract. Take a little bit less money in the back of the contract, maybe $30 million around that ballpark. I imagine it'll be a 4 or 5 year deal, so he'll be playing into his 40s, and it wouldn't make sense to guy. I don't care who it is. It wouldn't make sense to pay a guy $40+ million for a guy that's going to be 40 years old. I think they will front load that contract. But in terms of him staying in Phoenix, I think this one's pretty obvious. It's not as clear cut as Kawhi, in my opinion. I think Kawhi was probably just going to stay in LA, especially after coming off that ACL injury. I think CP3 would have more of a chance to leave, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's staying in Phoenix.
Just want to put this up here. I know this definitely won't trigger you at all, Matt.
Rudy Gobert, like all he is a rebound. Have you seen him play for France in the Olympics? He literally, like, this is what he was born to do: just stand in the paint and just be there. He doesn't do anything. He just gets rebounds and just stands there for the obligatory 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert is definitely a specialist kind of NBA player, if you will. But a guy I do want to talk about is interesting here is Jarrett Allen. We did mention he did sign his 5-year, $100 million contract extension. What do you think about that, though? Because didn't the Cavs just draft Evan Mobley, another big man, at number 3 just a couple days ago?
I was concerned with the fit as well. Although, funnily enough, I guess Woj just retweeted something about this. They say it could be a special front court with Mobley alongside Jarrett Allen. But I don't know. I mean, Mobley his brother played with him at USC, right? And
yep.
they shared the 4 together. So I don't know if Mobley necessarily has experience at both the 4 and the 5. Maybe he could play the 4. Jarrett Allen's at the 5, but that fit there is still a bit confusing to me.
I do agree with you, especially in today's NBA. There's some big man. I will say Evan Mobley is a very fucking good basketball player. Like, this dude was. I know we can curse on here. But he was really good at USC. There's a reason he went top 3 for a reason, and he does have shooters touch and stuff. But in today's NBA, I want to see him at the 5 because I just think it's gonna unlock a whole nother level to his game. I really like Jarrett Allen as a player. I thought the Cavs getting him was really good. And been benefiting from that huge James Harden deal. But drafting Mobley made sense as well. Like, I wasn't against that either. But yeah, the fit is really interesting. They aren't the same type of big man, but to pay a guy who maybe doesn't even start at some point $100 million is very concerning.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's a questionable fit just because Jarrett Allen, what he brings defensively is great, but much like Rudy Gobert, his offensive ability is a bit limited. He's a stand around the rim guy. He's a putback dunk guy. He's got an eye that's gonna catch dunks, catch lobs. He's gonna throw down some dunks. But other than that, his offensive game is really, really limited. He's gonna grab a lot of boards. He's gonna play great defense. Gonna block a lot of shots, but offensively is limited, which is why I would question giving him $100 million.
Yeah. Also, too, we were right on the money with the Kyle Lowry deal, Goran Dragic, Precious Achiuwa, and a 2nd-round pick in the sign-in trade. So we were pretty spot on about that. So that's good. So yeah, ball don't lie. Get your news here. I don't see anything else super noteworthy right now. Just kind of scrolling through Twitter here as we go. Just got a notification again about Kelly Olynyk. Who cares? yeah. We mentioned him once. That was it. But I want to talk about Kawhi Leonard. You brought him up. So I think we both think he'll probably re-sign with the Clippers. Again, opting out of a $36 million deal. He probably just wants that long-term security there. But I want to know, Matt, because I saw a rumor saying that he might look for some other offers. He's going to keep his ear out there. So do you expect him to sign day 1 here in free agency, or you think it might take a couple days?
Yeah, Hunter, the report was right out of the gate that he's not going to sign on day 1. That he was going to give it a couple days. Yeah, I was laughing at that. But like dating history. That's good. Good one, Andrew. But yeah, it's. I remember what the fuck we were talking about.
I shouldn't have shown that. I was just geeking about that.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, man. I don't think he's going to sign day 1. I think he's going to field offers just to see if anybody offers him a more significant contract in a better situation than he is in the Clippers. But I think he ultimately will re-sign in LA. I think he's going to give the homer discount here and go back to the Clippers.
Yeah, and I want to know what Reggie Jackson's deal is too, because he played really well for them in the playoffs without Kawhi Leonard there, and I'm figuring that he might get a lot of money from the Clippers too, so they might be spread a little bit thin here. But nevertheless, I re-signing there. But one of the more interesting free agents here, to I guess put it, is Evan Fournier. Now the Celtics made a very interesting trade, getting Evan Fournier from the Magic to the Celtics when they needed big man, but they're like, let's just get another wing because that's going to solve all of our problems. And then all of a sudden, now he wants 4 years, $80 million. He's got feeling himself after getting buckets there in the Olympics. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck he's thinking, but it sounds like the Knicks might be interested in him as well. Matt, I don't know. I mean, expectation versus reality here. What do you think Evan Fournier is actually worth?
I think Evan Fournier is worth maybe around $5 million a year. I think he's worth the vet minimum. I really don't think he's that. I don't know why. I don't know who his agent is, but if his agent is able to get him a 4-year, $80 million contract, I might need to hire him as my agent because that's insane. He could convince him that I'm good at basketball as well. Evan Fournier is not. He's just not a good player. And the Celtics also don't need him. They don't need more wings. First of all, can we talk about the Celtics for a second? They traded for Al Horford. They traded away Kemba Walker, and they traded for Josh Richardson. Did they watch the 2020 Philadelphia 76ers with Josh Richardson and Al Horford on the same team? That was a horrible team, and now Brad Stevens just thinks it's going to be a good team. I don't understand his thinking here. He's just throwing money away. Evan Fournier, Josh Richardson, and Al Horford being their biggest deals is not a good sign for GM, President of Basketball Operations, Brad Stevens.
Yeah, and let's talk about it too. I wanted to bring up later in the show, but let's just do it now. The Celtics, of course, get Josh Richardson from the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm hearing rumors that Brad Stevens was never the biggest Marcus Smart fan. Apparently, he was a big Danny Ainge guy, but Danny Ainge now gone. There's rumors that Marcus Smart will, in fact, get traded. Is that something we should expect in the coming days, Matt, or do you think that this could potentially just be smoke?
I think it is something to expect, especially with the deal for Josh Richardson here. I just don't think it would be a good fit to have both Marcus Smart and Josh Richardson on the same team. And it's a lot of money to be forking over for guys that are very similar in play style. I do think Marcus Smart gets traded, especially with the poor relationship that has been reported between him and Brad Stevens. Marcus Smart was a big Danny Ainge guy. We talked about it earlier, Hunter. I just don't see a way that Brad Stevens is going to keep him around. It's going to be a tough one for Boston fans. I know they're in love with oh my God.
This is great, guys. Keep it coming. We love this kind of content.
Frankie Smokes. Yeah. It's French betrayal. I don't even remember what the fuck we were talking about, Hunter. I don't know. Yeah, I'm done with my point.
All right, yeah. Well, good thing is that Chris Haynes is also getting pretty busy here, keeping up with Shams and Woj during this time. Cameron Payne agreed to re-sign with the Phoenix Suns on a 3-year, $19 million deal. I think that's a great deal for Phoenix and Cameron Payne. He kind of lost or was kind of losing his NBA career. The Suns kind of pick him up off the NBA streets, if you will, and he's all of a sudden just absolutely hooping for them. He stepped in for Chris Paul really well. I think he's a great backup point guard for this team. And also just saw Chris Paul is getting surgery on his left wrist. I don't think that affects anything. But, you know, we break all the kind of news here, I guess, here on Ball Don't Lie. But what do you think about Cameron Payne coming back? Because I think, like I said, that's a great get.
Yeah, I think so too, especially if he's able to continue to play the way that he played in the playoffs this year for Phoenix. He was a spark plug for them off the bench. Whenever Monty Williams needed a spark, he was able to plug Cameron Payne in, and he balled out. He also balled out in the games that he started for Chris Paul that he missed due to COVID. He was playing really, really well in the playoffs. He deserves every penny of that $19 million deal. 3 years. I think it's, but like you said, both a team-friendly and a Cameron Payne-friendly deal, especially since Payne was damn near out of the NBA a couple of years ago. Signed with Phoenix before the bubble and balled out there, re-earned his contract in Phoenix this past season, and now has earned a pretty fat contract, more than probably he expected to make 2 years ago.
Yeah, a fun fact, my friend apparently was in Florida like a couple years ago and saw a campaign at the club. But I gotta see this campaign. Gloves similar to Charles Entertainment Cheese, both the reputation and appearance. Campaign. He plays really well off the ball too. Getting back to basketball stuff about campaign, he can kind of play either guard position, which playing with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, that's very valuable. So The Suns definitely are trying to keep things going here. And never mind, that wasn't a tweet. I thought something was breaking. It was not. But yeah, I think Cam Payne's an awesome fit there. But let's look at some other stuff here. Carmelo Anthony, it's looking like that the Banana Boat crew might meet up after all, sort of. LeBron, of course, is playing with Dwayne Wade. Maybe Chris Paul, they'll team up one day if Russell Westbrook doesn't work out. But looking at the Lakers here, it looks like Carmelo Anthony is expecting a call from the Lakers, and he could potentially, be in that supporting cast for LeBron and the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a team-friendly deal for the Lakers for him to go there. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be. I think Melo's not going to cost a lot for whatever team signs him. I think we're all pretty aware of his abilities at this point. I also heard the Knicks are pushing hard for a reunion. I know Andrew will love that. He'll love the Knicks re-signing Carmelo just for the nostalgia. I think
though?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
I think so.
I think it's either the Lakers or back to the Blazers from Melo or even retirement. But I think the Lakers would actually be a good fit for Carmelo, come off the bench, give them some buckets if needed. And also the Lakers just need to fill out the roster because they have 5 dudes on the roster right now. I know LeBron's great and all. I know he's been able to make some weird rosters work before, but I don't think 5 dudes on a roster is going to get it done.
Yeah, at least they got 5 good players on the roster. But yeah, the Lakers are probably going to look a lot different. They have some cap room, but of course, they're going to let a lot of guys go. They've already traded a lot of their guys, so they're going to look different and they're going to try and run it back. I'm glad you gave your unbiased one because, if you were going to call me biased for being a Laker fan, I do think Melo would make sense there. Defensively, he's not great, but offensively, you talk about him playing pretty well in Portland. I think if the Lakers just let Melo be Melo, he could be a more consistent Kyle Kuzma potentially.
More consistent Kyle Kuzma. We all know his defensive abilities at this point in his career. Even throughout most of his career,
they were never good.
But he's gonna get you buckets, and he's shown that since he's been in Portland, he can still get buckets with the best of them. I think he'd be a good fit for the Lakers, and obviously he would want to play with LeBron.
Yeah, I think that I expect that to happen there.
Holy shit! TJ McConnell got a 4-year, $35 million contract.
I just saw that. That's a lot of money. Okay, I guess they really.
Listen, I love me some TJ McConnell. I'm the biggest TJ McConnell guy there is. I have a TJ McConnell jersey, but $35 million for TJ McConnell, yikes!
Whew. That's man. That's a lot. Good for him. He was undrafted, right? I don't even think out of Arizona. Yep, good for him getting his money, man. He was really good with the Pacers.
Man. He was playing with Tony Roten. Oh my God, that was wow. Hollis Thompson. He was playing with those guys.
Well, yeah, he was on some of those good teams though. I think he was on the team that with Jimmy Butler and stuff.
Oh yeah, he was on that team too. He stayed on a few process Sixers that made it out. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the ones that actually had an NBA career. Oh, oh wait, that might be a fake account. It's a fake account.
Hunter, don't do this, man. Don't Hunter, don't get.
I think it's fake. Hold on, I gotta check. Yeah, it's fake.
You got McCockiner, didn't you?
I didn't get McCockiner, actually. I got Shams. There's a different Shams account.
Oh my God! Look for the check mark, brother. Look for the check.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. I saw the tweet at first, and I looked, and I was like, "Wait, I don't think that's Shams." Twitter handles Pac-Man Jones. So I'm like, never mind. But it was his picture. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah,
what was the fake tweet, Hunter? We want to know.
The tweet said that free agent forward DeMar DeRozan has agreed to a 2-year, $60 million deal with the Clippers. Then I saw that, and I was like,
where are the Clippers getting that money from?
Where are the Clippers getting that money from? That's a great question. But anyways, though, we were talking about Melo here.
Yeah.
All right, this is where I was going to talk about. So we've had this crazy theory on Ball Don't Lie that Steph Curry was going to get traded from the Warriors and demand a trade. It's probably not going to happen anymore because he's going to sign allegedly a 4-year, $215 million contract, Matt. I mean, that is like generational wealth. My God.
Yeah, is that a lot? That feels like a lot.
It's a lot of numbers. I don't think I can count that high.
Yeah, he's definitely a Warrior for life. Even back then when we talked about it, it was hard to see Steph Curry actually leaving Golden State. While it made sense to us, it probably wasn't going to happen, and this is probably going to prove that. Steph's going to be a Warrior for life. He's going to stay there forever. He's going to be there through the thick and the thin. And good for him, man. I mean, not a lot of people stay in the place that drafted them forever, so I'm happy for him.
Oh man, I would have loved to have seen. I gotta put that. That's all funny. It's funny because she's probably like, I don't even know how old Riley Curry is now. Someone looked that up in the chat because she's probably not even like that little anymore. I think Steph has like 2 other kids. Like,
yeah, definitely not old enough for anything Evan's worried about, but definitely not old enough for that. But yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty penny for Steph Curry. Obviously,
but this Ryker's got her own penthouse in San Francisco. Yeah, she probably does if she wanted to. She has her own, like, you know how like they buy like the toy cars for like kids and stuff, like the pink like Lambo. She's just got an actual pink Lambo, probably.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's just probably sitting in the garage.
Yeah. But anyways, though. Speaking of the Golden State Warriors, there's a chance that they want to bring in a few veterans, and one of those guys might be Andre Iguodala. The Heat obviously decided not to opt in on their team option for him because they had to make space to get Kyle Lowry. That was $15 million that Iguodala is not going to get back, and he's probably kind of upset about that. He feels a certain type of way. But going back potentially to the Golden State Warriors, I also heard the Lakers could be in the mix. I think any team, Matt, that needs a veteran who's going to get it done on the defensive side of the floor and can hit timely shots is definitely going to want Iguodala.
Yeah, I could see Iguodala definitely going back to the Warriors. They could use his presence, honestly. It's definitely been missed the last 2 years when he wasn't there. The Lakers, obviously, I mean, the Lakers are going to be linked to everybody like they are every offseason. But Iguodala, I mean, I assume he's not going to get paid anywhere near what he would have been paid with Miami, $15 million. I think it'll be closer to that minimum, around $5 million. I think the Warriors would be a great fit for both him and the Warriors.
Yeah, I think it could be an interesting fit. I think Lakers could be solid as well, especially because Frank Vogel wants to, get back to that defensive identity that kind of won the Lakers a championship in the first place. But I guess speaking of the Lakers here, no breaking news, but something I expect to happen is a Dwight Howard reunion with the Lakers, part 3. It's been there quite a few times. I think that they desperately needed a big man who can really anchor the defense. They lacked that last year, in my opinion. Montrezl Harrell's like 6'6" and plays center. Andre Drummond kind of just got thrown in the mix and had no idea what the hell he was doing out there. And Marcus Gasol is more of a spread the floor passing kind of big man. So I think bringing in Dwight Howard makes a lot of sense for the Lakers. And it just emotionally, the fans, he went from being hated, probably one of the most hated Lakers of all time, to one of the most loved. So I think bringing him back would definitely be very important for the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think it's a good fit for him and the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers just need to fill bodies. They need to get guys in uniforms. Dwight Howard's a great fit for them. I mean, they need a backup center. Marcus Gasol's days are numbered, in my opinion. I just think it's a good fit for both Dwight Howard and the Lakers because Dwight Howard had a pretty good season in Philly this year. I got to watch it firsthand, but I think that marriage is likely over because he was at the Hawks game pretty much the week after the Hawks eliminated the Sixers. He was at a Hawks game for the Eastern Conference Finals. Really didn't care that much. So I think he will likely go back to the Lakers. I think that'd be my best bet.
Yeah, and I think just him being the backup to arguably, one of the best centers in basketball in Joel Embiid, like you're not getting a lot of playing time there. So, so I think Dwight Howard would be very good for the Lakers or maybe another team looking to get a good big man there. But ironically, not to keep on the Lakers here, but they still want to make a move for Buddy Hield after that trade fell through to get Westbrook. How do you feel about that, Matt? Is that even possible? Because like you said, there's nobody on the team in the trade.
Yeah, they got 5 dudes on the roster right now. I would probably worry about trying to fill out the roster for free agents rather than trying to make another trade. Unless they're planning on trading every draft pick they own for the next couple of years for Buddy Hield. I don't think they're going to do that. Wow. Duncan Robinson, a 5-year,
I saw that too.
$90 million contract to stay with the Heat.
I thought he was going to get that kind of money, to be honest. Yeah, I expected that. Can't say I'm shocked, but seeing that is still kind of nuts.
Yeah.
For a guy who could do one thing on the basketball court.
Yeah, he can't play defense worth a damn, but he can shoot. And Jimmy Butler likes him, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, has his own podcast.
I honestly wonder what the Heat are going to do with Tyler Hero in this situation, because it seems like he's kind of being phased out here. Tunga Robinson's getting the big money. Kyle Lowry coming over. And honestly, Tyler Hero did not play well last year. I think we all know that. I wonder what the Heat – I mean, obviously they were originally linked to Kyle Lowry in the middle of the season around the trade deadline. They were unwilling to give up Tyler Hero. So I wonder what they're going to do now with him.
That's a really interesting point. It seems like they're feeding all their big dogs out here. Kyle Lowry they just re-signed Robinson. They extended Jimmy Butler. They didn't even have to do that, and they still extended Jimmy Butler. So I do kind of wonder, Matt, what they're going to do there. That's a really good point. Also, if anyone cares, Torrey Craig's going to the Pacers. 2 years, $10 million, according to Woj here. So Pacers are making some the Pacers and the Pistons are making like the most irrelevant signings. Like no one cares. But we have a report anyway here on Ball Don't Lie. So yeah, that happened. But yeah, Matt, I saw something kind of interesting here. Apparently, only 8 teams entering free agency had actual cap space. It was the Knicks, the Spurs, the Mavericks, the Thunder, the Raptors, the Heat, the Pistons, and the Hornets. It seems like the Pistons have decided where to allocate their money, but what else do you think is going to happen?
I think, with only the 8 teams having real free agency money, with real cap space, I think a lot of the big moves this offseason are going to be through trades. We've seen a little bit of it already with Russell Westbrook going to the Lakers. We'll get more into that a little bit later, I imagine. But I think most of the big deals are going to be made through trades. We're still up in the air with what's going to happen with Damian Lillard, what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. Maybe they're in a deal together. Maybe I'm just speaking that into existence, hopefully. Wow, Trey got a big extension.
Yep, guys, max extension, 170.
Yeah, 5 years, 170. I mean, we expected that. He wasn't going to go anywhere. He's the face of that franchise, just got in the Eastern Conference Finals. He earns that money. It's going to be interesting, though, what happens to him when the rules change this season. Let's see if he can actually –
Oh, come on.
No, I'm going to say it, Hunter. I'm going to say it. No, they need to change the rules.
Oh, my God. They did change the rules. They already said it.
Good.
Oh, come on.
Good. Trae Young is a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's still going to average 25 a night. Matt,
we have, because of your rants on certain players, we cannot have them as guests on the podcast. I like Trae Young, okay? I want to leave that window of opportunity open, okay, to have him on the podcast. I can't have you trashing on Trae Young.
I'm going to agree with my man Andrew down here. Trae Young is fraudulent. I'm trying to teach them, man. Nobody wants to listen to me. Trae Young, he's yeah.
He says no.
Both. I think the league says no to that, Andrew. I don't think the league wants to fix for the 2022 finals, especially with LeBron still in his prime. I don't think they're going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, David stood somewhere in his grave vetoing a Knicks Spurs 2022 NBA Finals.
He's like, we got that once in '99. We don't need that again.
Oh my God. Doug McDermott. Oh, here you go. I know that someone's a Spurs fan.
Hunter's been waiting for a Spurs move. Here's the Spurs move.
Yep, 3 years, $42 million. Doug McDermott. Let's go.
Shooters, baby.
There's actually a twist. You get Creighton Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the all-time league scorers in college history. Oh man.
Given $14 million just to Doug McDermott. I mean, they did overpay for Jakob Poeltl last year, so who knows?
That they
like
those white men on the team.
Away.
Yeah. I guess. But yeah, that's an interesting move here. But we went through everything pretty much that we had entering our rundown, and we're at 44 minutes in. So that just shows you how much has gone on since the start of the show, which we started right at 6 p.m. But let's talk about the move that probably kicked off the offseason, and that was Russell Westbrook going back home to his native LA and teaming up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis after they had some sort of talk at LeBron's crib that they were just going to be teammates together. The Lakers give up Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell in a 2021, the 22nd pick in the 2021 NBA draft. It ended up being Isaiah Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, out of Kentucky. Matt, what do you think about this trade for the Lakers? Do you think that they were due to make a big move, and do you think that this will be the right move to make?
honestly, with the value that Kuzma, KCP, and Trez have, I think getting Russell Westbrook back in that kind of a deal is a huge steal for the Lakers. What are the Wizards going to do with that? I have no idea.
No. They better hope Kuzma averages 25 for the pulls like a Jeremy Grant season or something. I don't know.
Listen, like the Beal has been like, oh, I want to stay loyal to the Wizards, but like, how can you make this trade if you're like, with the Wizards? Come on, man. But I think this is a good move for Westbrook. I think it's going to give LeBron more of a chance to play off ball, especially since they supposedly had this conversation. They're both going to be okay with the ball in each other's hands. Who knows? Westbrook, as long as he doesn't shoot 20 times a game and turn the ball over 8 times a game, I think they'll be fine. I think playing with LeBron has done wonders for a lot of players' careers. So I think Westbrook will fit in fine about there. I think it's a good move for the Lakers. I think the Wizards did get fleeced. I think we both know that. But this is about as good as value as you're going to get for that trio of Kuzma, KCP, and Trez that just wasn't working anymore. I think a Westbrook is a good move for the Lakers.
Well, they almost gave up that same package minus, I think, KCP for Buddy Hield, who's a good player, but not as good as Westbrook. Also, just want to report Chris Paul is officially going to be staying with the Suns on a 4-year, $120 million deal. So that expires when he's 40 years old, Matt. So they signed him until he's 40.
Yeah, I want to see what the work on that contract is. I wonder if it's going to be like what we talked about earlier, where it's a little bit front loaded with that money. Maybe give him $40 million this year, and then probably the end of that. I feel like that's kind of cheap for him. 4 years, $120 million. I guess they do know he's going into it by the end of that contract. Will be 40, but that's quite the contract for Chris Paul. I imagine that'd be front loaded in terms of money.
I mean, that's still 30 a year for Chris Paul. Even Tom Brady only got 20 a year from the Bucks. So, and he's one of those Super Bowl.
I mean, let's be real here, man. Like a couple years ago, DeMarre Carroll was getting $20 million a year. So, so we'll see with that.
Yeah. But yeah, good for Chris Paul. Good for the Suns. I expect, they'll have the band back together and they'll be a contender yet again in the Western Conference. Maybe they're even more hungry at the fact that they lost. But talking about Russell Westbrook here in particular, I think I said it. The Lakers need to make a big move. I didn't know what it was going to be. Bradley Beal sounded like a pipe dream, but I was praying that was going to happen. Damian Lillard probably even more so. But Russell Westbrook was probably realistically the biggest move they could have made. The only player I think they'll maybe miss on that team is KCP. Now, to give him credit, he was probably their third best player in the bubble when they won the championship. Defensively was probably one of their best wing defenders, and he shot 41% from 3 this last year. So I do think they missed that. Kyle Kuzma just never was a great fit with the Lakers once LeBron and AD got there, and quite frankly was kind of trash. I mean, to have 2 playoffs where he did absolutely nothing, I think that said numbers to the Lakers, and they were ready to get rid of him. Actually, LeBron James and Jared Dudley threw a going-away party for Kyle Kuzma, a lunch.
Really?
They did, which is interesting. Really? Yeah, that actually happened. I think that was today that happened, actually.
That's kind of fucked up.
It's kind of fucked up. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, that still happened there. LAPD vetoed the trade because KCP's still under house arrest. Oh my god.
Those
I remember that. That was like one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. It was literally KCP. Literally was only allowed to go to practice, and then he had to go straight back to the jail cell.
Yeah, those
it was the weirdest thing. And then the Lakers had a huge California
with that ankle monitor. That's good stuff. Man.
Oh my god, man. Oh my god, yeah. That was one of the weirdest things. And then they were playing games in Sacramento and Golden State, which is in state, so he was allowed to somehow go to those games too. I don't know how he was not suspended or anything. But oh well, KCP just out here living his best life. I always had a theory. This is off topic, but I always had a theory that KCP knew where the dead bodies were because every year the Lakers always signed him, and he always got probably more money than he was worth. And I was what does he know that the Lakers are scared not to pay him?
So
that was always the funniest thing.
That man was on the trade block for 3 years. Ever since LeBron signed there, Kyle Kuzma was on the trading block, and now he just got traded. Probably when his value was probably at its lowest, but stick with Westbrook. I do think it's an interesting fit.
because neither of those three players in LeBron AD are great shooters. In fact, the best one's probably Anthony Davis, and he's the one who you're like, get your ass in the paint probably. But I do think this takes off a lot of pressure off LeBron because, like that one video, he's like, I'm 36, now going to be 37. So I do think that Westbrook will help there. I also heard that LeBron might start at the 4 and Anthony Davis might start at the 5, which would be an interesting look because neither of those guys like playing that position, but they both seem to thrive in it.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense for them to do something like that. Marc Gasol probably needs to come off the bench. He's well past his prime. Dwight Howard, if he does sign there, will also likely need to come off the bench. And I think Westbrook, too, he's been a pretty reliable player throughout his career in terms of playing in every game, playing through injuries. He doesn't get hurt a lot. He's been pretty consistent. So if the Lakers are able to build that chemistry, keep him on the floor, obviously they've missed both Anthony Davis and LeBron this past season. If anything, if they are able to keep some management in with those two players, LeBron and AD, Westbrook needs to bring that consistency, needs to bring that ability to keep them healthy and give them less to do, if that makes sense. Obviously, two of the greatest players in the NBA, in LeBron and AD, but giving them less to do is going to probably save their careers for the long run.
Yeah, I do think he's definitely going to help out, especially in an 82-game regular season. The one thing you got to give Westbrook credit for is this dude plays so hard every single game. Like, his energy and his effort is never not there, and I think the Lakers kind of lacked that last year. So I think bringing in Westbrook will help there, absolutely. But let's look ahead a little bit, or look behind, I should say, in the rear view. The NBA draft, of course, we were not on for the NBA draft, but a lot definitely happened there. Of course, Westbrook might have been the biggest story. But, Matt, it was one of the weirdest drafts I've honestly ever seen. The top 3 picks were pretty chalk. I think we all knew Cade Cunningham was going to go to the Pistons, despite the fact that trades were getting thrown their way. Jalen Green was rumored to go to the Rockets ever since the lottery. He goes there. Evan Mobley, who we already talked about, went number 3 of the Cavs. After that, though, Matt, was a complete shit show. I just want to ask you, what were some of the weirdest picks that you saw out there?
Yeah, and honestly, Hunter, it was one of the more boring drafts I've seen. It just seemed like everything that happened just wasn't very entertaining. The biggest shock to me, though, was still the Raptors passing on Jalen Suggs for Scotty Barnes. I thought that was interesting because I feel like they needed a guard, especially with Kyle Lowry.
Looks like it now, right?
Yeah, that was kind of weird of them to pass, and they took Scotty Barnes, another big guy who, quite frankly, they don't need with Pascal Siakam still on the team, OG Anunoby still on the team. I just don't think that fit makes a ton of sense unless there's something that they know that we don't know. At this current juncture, but I think the Magic got to be super happy with Jalen Suggs just falling in their lap. I know they are pretty guard heavy at the moment, but there's no way you could pass on a guy like Jalen Suggs. At that point, you got to take the best player available, and the Magic did that, especially since they did have another pick at 8.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the Scotty Barnes thing. I did not see him as a top 5 player in this draft. A lottery pick, I was fine with him going lottery, but top 5, absolutely not. He's not a good offensive player. He can pass the ball. He's not a great shooter. Doesn't do a great job creating his own shot. Defensively, I do think there's upside there. But you talk about what the Raptors already have and what they don't have, and Jalen Suggs just seemed like the perfect fit, and they didn't make it. I was really confused there too, Matt.
It's really questionable. I mean, it seemed like every mock draft I looked at also had Jalen Suggs going for the Raptors. It seemed like the most obvious fit, and I was shocked that he did not go for. I was shocked that the Raptors even thought about passing on him, but then to actually select, and they must know something that we don't. I know their front office has been pretty notorious for being a pretty great front office, but I think this is a big mistake unless they know something we don't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't understand. I don't know. Maybe Masai Ujiri's got one foot out the door and he wants to leave. Who knows? But yeah, I definitely think that was the wrong move. I think Jalen Suggs is probably going to ball out for the Magic next year, and they're going to look kind of stupid. Another pick that really made no sense, Matt, was Josh Primo going number 12 to the Spurs. I know other Hunter here, of course we have the connection, but that pick made 0 sense. This dude averaged 8 points per game his only season at Alabama and went 12. How is that even possible? And he's not even like that big or anything like that. His shooting numbers weren't all that impressive either. He was probably like the 3rd or 4th best player on that Alabama team, and yet he goes 12.
Yeah, and with the Spurs, I mean, the big rule with the Spurs has always been, for as long as I can remember, you don't question anything they do. Throughout the 2000s and the early 2010s, it was always don't question anything they do. They know what they're doing. But recently, man, I don't know what the hell they're doing. When they drafted him, I audibly said, who? Because this guy was a second-round grade, a second-round pick, and they drafted him in the lottery at number 12 when there was a lot of other dudes still available.
A lot of guys. This was one of the deeper drafts we've seen in a while.
Yeah, and I can't believe that they used this pick on a guy, like you said, who had averaged 8 points per game at Alabama. If he honestly, I don't even think if Primo doesn't take it there at 12, I don't know if he gets drafted at all in the first round. I am shocked that they took that guy.
I was hearing buzz that he could have went first round. That was the most I heard. It was that, he could climb back into the first. And then the Spurs were like, we'll take him at 12.
Yeah.
They made some solid picks. Keldon Johnson on Team USA right now. Lonnie Walker, I think, is still going to get a lot better. DeJounte Murray kind of fell in their laps in 2016. So they made some solid picks over the years. You can't expect them to get a Tony Parker, Ginobili, and Kawhi Leonard in the draft every year. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. But this pick, in hindsight, I think it's not going to work out. I thought this was way too high, and I thought RC Buford was really reaching here.
Yeah, I know the Spurs are trying to rebuild a little bit. I know they can afford to get projects right now, but Josh Primo, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what they saw in him to not only draft a guy like this, but then to commit to him being a project. What are they going to do? And they already have a pretty loaded backcourt with DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker. Like you said, if they decide to bring back Patty Mills, that's a pretty loaded backcourt. So I don't know what they're planning on doing in terms of giving Primo runtime, unless they're planning on playing him in the G League throughout the year. But I think this is probably the most questionable pick of the draft.
I know. Actually, I kind of want to talk about Patty Mills. I think he's one of the more interesting free agents. Right now, he's in Australia doing his thing there, and they're probably one of the threats to potentially take down USA, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think Patty Mills is a really freaking good player. Of course, has NBA Finals experience. He's an NBA champion. I think a lot of teams will be interested in him if he doesn't return to the Spurs.
Yeah, I think so too. I would hope the Sixers would be in on him. That'd be pretty cool because he can shoot the basketball a little bit, especially if they do end up trading Ben Simmons, which I hope they do. But I assume Patty Mills probably won't sign anywhere until he gets back from Tokyo. I think that could be probably the last significant domino to fall in free agency because by the time he gets back, he'll probably be one of the few free agents left. So I think that'll be interesting to see what he does.
I would love for him to come to the Lakers because he absolutely kills them every single time they play. But anyways, though, even Hunter saying here, Spurs need to take advantage of FIBA Patty Mills. He's nice and he's fucking filthy in international play. He really is. That dude gets his shots up. But I will say this though, I just saw something saying that the Knicks and the Spurs and potentially the Pelicans could all make a run at Evan Fournier if he does not re-sign with the Celtics. Nothing official there yet, but potentially could be something in the works for either of those teams to get the great Evan Fournier, because he's just such an awesome guy. But anyways, we talked about some of the worst picks in the draft. I'm going to give a team that I gave them a lot of credit because I love what they've done the last couple drafts. Not this one, Matt. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they trade Jonas Valanciunas, who had a really good year for them last year, and even the year before, for Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. They take on all that money to get the 10th pick in the draft. And they take a guy in Zaire Williams who was very underwhelming and, quite frankly, a terrible fit and not ready to play now for a Memphis Grizzlies team that's trying to build off their playoff berth last year. I really think that they took one step forward, 2 steps back with that move.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, listen, James Bouknight was still right there. He was sitting in their laps. He fell right to their laps, and they didn't take him. They took, quite frankly, another guy. We talked about project earlier with Josh Primo. This guy's another project for the Grizzlies. And like you said, Hunter, they need pieces to win now. They need young pieces to come up with John Morant and get them back to the playoffs. I just don't think Zaire Williams is that piece. I don't think he's ready to play yet.
Yeah, I did not like that move at all. He's got a lot of talent. I personally don't. I was hearing he probably wasn't even going to go lottery. But he was able to go all the way up to 10. But maybe I can do something with him. Who knows? And the other team that I really questioned was the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like we talked about, that we'll get into a little bit later. I don't want to say his name. But Josh Giddey going 6th overall, given how raw of a basketball player he is. I saw this funny meme that basically said that his weakness is that he can't play basketball. Pretty much. But Josh Giddey, that was a really confusing pick. And then Trey Mann, who I thought probably shouldn't even win in the first round, ends up being 18th overall, the Thunder. Now, look, I'll say this. We had this theory, I think, on Ball Don't Lie earlier when we were in school. I think it's great that the Thunder have a chance to draft, an entire middle school when they want to. But I also think that they drafted Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, Jeff Green. They drafted 3 MVPs. The odds that they're going to draft 3 MVPs again are so fucking low. Like, it's not going to happen. So I think having all these draft picks, honestly, is going to amount to literally nothing. That's my bold prediction.
I think unless the Thunder are able to strike lightning in the bottle with some of these draft picks and eventually trade most of these draft picks down the line for something bigger, maybe a potential trade package in 2025. But like you said, Hunter, I mean, these picks are not going to be anything because right now they're scouting AAU teams. They're scouting 14U teams.
Middle school teams. They're scouting CYO teams.
Yeah, like this is ridiculous at this point. They have so many draft picks, and it just seems like they're just always looking for ways to get more draft picks instead of just focusing on scouting guys now, drafting the right guys now. And like you said, Giddey, I just don't think he was the right pick. He wasn't.
No.
And there were so many other guys on the board they could have taken. They take this guy that, quite frankly, is not. I don't think he's ready to play yet either. And like you said, that meme might have been spot on. His weakness is playing basketball. He doesn't look that athletic to me, Hunter. I mean, he really doesn't.
Yeah. And currently looking through Twitter right now. I don't see any other updates regarding things, but we'll keep you posted here on the greatest basketball podcast of all time, Ball Don't Lie. But anyways, though, those are some of the teams and players that I kind of had a bone to pick with, Matt. Was there anybody else that we didn't mention that should get mentioned?
Not really. Like I said earlier, the draft was honestly pretty boring. Like most of it was pretty just like standard. Like it wasn't like nobody really was outside the box here, except for those guys we already brought up. I do want to mention though the teams I thought who had good drafts. I thought the Warriors, for a team that was rumored to trade their 7th to 14th pick, actually I think they did well with their picks. I think getting Moses Moody at 14, Kendrick Perkins fucked up his name so much it was so funny. But that was probably the highlight of the draft was him fucking up that name.
It's not even that hard of a name.
Yeah, Moses Moody, and he fucked it up so many times. But I think the Warriors did have a good draft. I think honestly, the reason I won't say they have the best draft is because I think they'll probably end up trading most of those players because they are still in win now mode with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They're not necessarily looking for projects. But I will say the Hornets had a really, really good draft. I was really impressed with their draft. Getting Bouknight to fall under last by the grace of God is a great scenario for Charlotte. Despite the amount of guards they already have, you take best available in that situation, and they did. They then jumped at an opportunity to fill a huge hole at center with Kai Jones from Texas, who they honestly could have taken 11 if Bouknight had already been taken, but he wasn't. So they were able to get 2 guys. They really need to fill out their team in 2 pretty significant spots. Great draft from the Hornets, in my opinion.
Yeah, starting with the Golden State Warriors, I thought their picks were interesting, but I wasn't opposed to them. I think that they almost lost the draft in their eyes because those picks didn't get moved and they didn't get a player. But to be honest, I just don't think they could have gotten anybody. I just don't think there was a trade to be had there for the Warriors. So they stood pat. I thought Jonathan Kuminga at 7, interesting fit with the Warriors just because he's a little raw. But I do trust their player development staff. And I think he honestly was a top 5 talent in this draft. I really did. So I think him going to number 7 is a very good value. And I think if the Warriors can clean up some of his inconsistencies in his game, I think he can turn out to be a really good player. And then Moses Moody at 14 felt right. I think he could come in right away and be a nice 3-and-D player for them, but also does have some potential on the offensive side of the floor after having a nice year at Arkansas. I agree with you. The big winners of the draft, in my opinion, were the Charlotte Hornets. I was so freaking impressed with what they did. I mean, Bouknight falling to 11, smart for them to read the board and know that could have happened. You pair him in that backcourt with LaMelo Ball, if they re-signed Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, those are 4 guys now that they could have on their team, plus adding Gordon Hayward too, that can dribble, pass, and shoot. and just absolutely explode. Book Knight I actually thought should have been the Thunder's pick at 6, and he ends up falling all the way to 11. He was such a bucket at UConn. Yeah, I thought that was stupid of teams to let him pass. Then they make a really smart trade with the New York Knicks, getting Kai Jones, a guy who is still pretty raw coming out of Texas, but a whole lot of potential. He has the ability to dominate on the defensive side of the floor. He's really mobile and athletic and can guard on the perimeter. He plays primarily 4-5 and also has a nice stroke, too, who could potentially be a consistent three-point shooter. You can be getting a stretch 5 potentially out of Kai Jones, and I think that's definitely going to be just saw a tweet, 3 years, $90 million for Kyle Lowry officially. Just to let the fans know there. I think the Hornets made an awesome pick. Then they trade up 20 spots and get Mason Plumlee from the Pistons. Now, I know he was in basically the Siberia of the NBA last year in Detroit, but Mason Plumlee is probably one of the best backup bigs in basketball, in my opinion. He was really good next to Nikola Jokic there in Denver. And the Hornets desperately need big man help. And I'm seeing Mason Plumlee's ability to pass the ball and also run the floor and catch lobs next to LaMelo Ball. He's going to fit absolutely perfectly there. And then they draft Thor from the Avengers. Just kidding. It's JT Thor from Auburn, but, make a stupid joke when it's there. But he also is a really good defensive player, which, again, the Hornets do need those defensive players. And he eventually could be a guy who can, extend his game past the three-point line and be a good shooter as well. Had a very nice season with Auburn his freshman year. So I think the Hornets, like you said, Matt, definitely won this draft.
I think they had a great draft. I think they did the people's draft. It was the Memphis Grizzlies last year, but this year's Twitter loved the draft. This year goes to Charlotte Hornets. They were very, very good this year. And I forgot about the Mason Plumlee deal. I can't believe the Pistons made that deal. Just gave him up pretty much, and the Hornets got the.
They needed to sign Kelly Olynyk, I guess. It was an urgent matter to sign Kelly Olynyk.
They need to make some room for Kelly Olynyk. They need another white guy. But I think that was good.
Also, Sterling Brown going to the Mavs.
Random.
Another irrelevant trade. Very random. Also, too, gotta give Mitch Kupchak the credit he deserves. He was the GM of the Lakers at one point. Helped build those championship teams there. It seems like they're building something special in Charlotte. I really think he's done a great job drafting, developing, finding the right young talent to pair. They got probably their franchise point guard of the future in LaMelo Ball, of course, Rookie of the Year. And they got some really good young players there. Gordon Hayward turned out to be a pretty good sign for them. A lot of money, yes, but he was pretty good for them last year, too. I think that he's done a phenomenal job. I don't say phenomenal, a very good job so far building that Charlotte team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially when you have a guy like LaMelo Ball, a young talent like that, you got to capitalize on his pretty relatively low contract right now. Got to capitalize on hitting on the guys in the draft, hitting on the guys in free agency. I do think Gordon Hayward is still pricey, but in the games that he did play this year that he wasn't injured, he was a great fit next to LaMelo Ball. And Terry Rozier has been a great fit. He had a great year last year. Devontae Graham goes back to the way he played when he won Most Improved Player a couple years ago. And doesn't play it the way he did last year. I think he's a great fit. He's still a great option for the Hornets team. And if he's not, now they have 3 legitimate guys they could roll out there in LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Book Knight.
And Malika Andrews, making the board here for reporters, saying Jeff Green is going to sign a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Denver Nuggets. I think that could be an interesting fit. They like, using those big men off the bench that can do a little bit of everything. What do you think about that? It seems like the 20th team that Jeff Green's played for.
Yeah, it probably is, honestly. But 2 years, $10 million, that feels like a relatively cheap deal for Jeff Green. I know he played pretty well this past year. He was with Brooklyn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like he played pretty well for Brooklyn. I'm surprised that he didn't get more money.
Surprised he didn't stay.
Yeah, 2 years is probably like a legitimate length for Jeff Green, but I think $10 million is a little bit cheap, especially when Kelly Olynyk's making $37 million.
Yeah, and Jeff Green was really good for the Brooklyn Nets. I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring him back. That one kind of shocks me. I figured he'd want to be back there, but I guess they probably didn't want him because I can't see why you'd want to not play for the Nets next year.
Especially at such a cheap deal like that.
I think they're the favorites to win the championship according to the bookies. So, actually, speaking of the Nets, I actually really like their draft. I thought they had made 2 phenomenal picks in the first round. With their pick that their original pick that they had. They drafted Cameron Thomas out of LSU. He is one of the highest scoring freshmen in NCAA history, and he went 27, Matt. This dude is an absolute bucket, averaged 23 a game at LSU. I get the fact that maybe he doesn't do a whole lot else other than scoring, but the one thing he does is really fucking good. And if you can get a rookie that can come in right away and get you buckets off the Nets bench, which was not very good last year and couldn't produce points, that's a big get. And then Day'Ron Sharpe out of UNC, and this is coming from a Duke fan saying this, I actually think he's got a lot of upside too. Kind of a DeAndre Jordan-esque kind of player, really big and physical, really good passer as well, low-key, and is very versatile on defense. He's just built. He looks like a football player. He looks like a tight end playing, basketball out there. I thought they made two really good picks. They're young players, so they can develop them if they're not ready. But if they can come in and make an impact, they certainly could.
Yeah, especially if you're a team like Brooklyn who's shelling out a lot of money to guys like KD, Kyrie, and James Harden already. You got to be able to hit on these draft picks, these late draft picks, and especially a guy like Cam Thomas. You're able to get a guy like that in the late round who was really, really good at one thing, and you can maybe expand on a couple of other parts of his game. But if he's really, really good at scoring, coming off the bench, that's a huge get for the Nets. If he can be that guy off the bench for them, get some buckets off the bench. Like you said, if he's known for one thing and it's scoring, that's good for the Nets. I think that's all they're probably going to ask him to do right now. Maybe expand on him a little bit in the coming years. But I think if you're the Nets, you got to be able to hit on these picks, and they did.
Yep, they absolutely did. Good job for them drafting. But a couple more guys I want to say, because, I'm a geek. I love the NBA draft. I'm going to say Jared Butler going to Utah at 40, I think was a phenomenal value. He was awesome with Baylor, and I think he can come in and make an immediate impact. And then I'm also going to say Sharif Cooper, who averaged 20 and 8 his freshman year at Auburn, goes 48 to the Atlanta Hawks, Matt, whereas Joshua Primo, who averaged 8 points a game in the same conference, went 12. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know either, man.
Yeah, those are the ones. But yeah, those are the big picks there. We covered the good, the bad, and the ugly here at the NBA draft. But let's talk about the NBA Finals, which concluded right before the draft. We were not on air during it. I did make my prediction of the Bucks Suns, but I was so close to getting it right. But then Giannis happened, and then the Bucks ended up taking it in 6 over the Phoenix Suns. Matt, what were kind of your biggest takeaways from the NBA Finals? What does this championship mean for the Bucks?
I mean, for the Bucks, it's incredible because Giannis, they built this from the ground up. 2013, they go back, you go all the way back to when Giannis and Chris Middleton were together. They were a 15-win team. And now for those two guys to be the stars of a team that just won the championship here in 2021, it's huge for the Bucks. They did it the right way. They did it the anti-KD way. They did it the right way. They really built it from the ground up. I love the way the Bucks built this team. They've surrounded Giannis with great players, great shooters, and Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, who didn't have the best NBA Finals, but played fantastic defense, came up in the clutch in Game 5 when he ripped the ball away from Devin Booker and threw that probably famous lob now to Giannis, which will live on in NBA Finals history. The Bucks just turned it on, man, and Giannis just turned it on. He got to another gear, which is crazy to me, considering that freak injury he had against Atlanta in the Eastern Conference Finals. He was able to come back that quickly. Not only come back that quickly, but come back that quickly and play so well like he did in the NBA Finals after the first 2 games. And all 4 games that Milwaukee won, he was awesome.
No, definitely.
Oh, no, did we lose Hunter? Guess I'm just by myself now. But one of the questions we were going to bring up is, what does this championship mean for Giannis's legacy? And, I think it does a lot for Giannis's legacy. He talked about this in his own post-game interview that he talked about. He talked about how doing it the right way, doing the way he wanted to do it. He wanted to stay in Milwaukee. He did it the right way. He did it, like I said earlier, like the anti-KD way. He definitely did it his own way. And I think that does a lot for his legacy to get that one championship in Milwaukee. He wanted to do it in Milwaukee. He wanted to do it his way, and he got it done.
Yeah, it didn't take him having to leave his original team to win the championship, Matt. Just a couple interesting notes here, though. Mo Harkless is going to be with the Kings on a 2-year, $9 million deal. And then Reggie Bullock going to the Dallas Mavericks. I think that's a little interesting.
Wow.
Let's not forget he was with the New York Knicks as well. It seems like they lost him. What do you think he means to Luka Doncic there? Because I think he could be a big help for that offense.
I think he's a great fit for the Mavericks. I don't know what the contract details are yet, though.
I haven't seen it either, but I just saw the tweet, Mark Stein.
I think that's a great fit for the Mavericks because I think, like we said earlier with Tim Hardaway Jr., they just need to surround Luka with shooters, man. And I think getting Luka more shooters, and you can never have enough shooters on an NBA team in general, but to get Luka more shooters around him, get him some help in terms of the scoring department. Reggie Bullock is a guy that knocks down threes. He doesn't play good defense, but not as anybody in the Mavericks. So I think this is a great fit for the Mavericks. Great pickup by them. Probably relatively cheap if I'm going to guess. Probably somewhere in the $10 to $15 million a year range. Or not a year, but I'd imagine if I were to guess, it'd probably be a 2-year, $10 to $15 million deal. I think that's a good. I think it's a good deal for the Mavericks. I think it's a good deal from Bullock too. I think it's a great situation for him.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that definitely raised some eyebrows. I think that was a good move for Dallas. They're definitely so far winners in free agency, able to get Tim Hardaway, in my opinion, a team-friendly deal, and then proceeding to get Reggie Bullock as well, who's definitely going to give some good minutes there in Dallas. Looking at the NBA Finals, though, a bit, we already talked about what that championship's going to mean for Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. You posed an interesting point about the anti-KD way. I want to hear your take on this, Matt. Do you think that Giannis's one championship with the Milwaukee Bucks is more valuable than the 2 championships that KD won with the Golden State Warriors?
I think it is, and I don't think there's much of a debate about that. I think there's no question. It's so much harder than KD's championship. It's not even close because, first of all, throw out the fact that KD went to an already stacked team. Giannis did it his own way, but Giannis's road to the finals was so much harder than any road to the finals that KD has been through with the Warriors. The Warriors ran roughshod through the Western Conference every year he was there, but the Bucks had to go through a tough Miami squad who they lost to last year. They had to beat KD's Brooklyn Nets in a tough 7-game series that I was convinced they were not going to win. They had to go through an upstart team in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Atlanta Hawks, who caught fire at the right time. They really caught magic on the ball. They were able to take them down. In the NBA Finals, they went up against Chris Paul and Devin Booker, Devin Booker is one of the upstart stars in this game, and he's a certified bucket. They went down 2-0 in that series. They went down 2-0 in the Nets series. They lost the first game of the Hawks series. They were able to fight their way back from all of those games and all of those series deficits and win all those series. I think Giannis is no question. This one ring, it means more than KD's 2 with the Warriors. No question.
I've also just saw a tweet saying that the Celtics are focused on keeping their cap sheet as clean as possible for next year's free agency class. They are not out on Evan Fournier yet, but they are not close to a deal either. So I guess maybe the Celtics are just seeing all these other big fish getting caught, and they're like, you know what, let's not even try to get these medium-sized fish. We're just going to wait for the big fish next year because we like fishing. But I agree with you. I know it sounds like maybe crazy in theory and like, oh, you're a hater, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that the championship Giannis won was more impressive than the 2 KD won for every single reason you pointed out. Plain and simple. I just think with Kevin Durant, look, he balls out in the playoffs too. It's not like KD doesn't show up and hides behind his teammates. He is that dude. I think Kevin Durant is still a better player than Giannis. I'm not going to go there yet. But I will say that the one championship Giannis did win, especially, I mean, you talk about the NBA Finals, Matt. He had so many of like those that moment, you know what I mean? Like we talk about when LeBron blocked the shot and Kyrie, made the shot over Steph, like that moment. Giannis had like 4 of those in the finals,
no
just
doubt.
himself. So like, and I'm not just saying those 4 plays in general, but that just shows you how amazing of a finals in particular, and a playoffs that Giannis had, and that he, at this point, if he decided to walk away from the game, in my opinion, first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no doubt. I think. Yeah, and this is, like we said, this is not discounting KD's efforts. He did go to a team that was already stacked, but he showed up and probably was the best player on that team for both finals runs he had with the Warriors. And I think arguably they might not even win those series without KD. They might even get there without KD. KD is a huge player performer. There's no doubt about that. Even this year, he would carry the Nets. There were multiple games he played all 48 minutes, and in Game 7, he played all 53 minutes because they went into overtime. And if it wasn't for his big ass feet, the Bucks wouldn't even have a championship right now. So, this is not to discount KD at all. I just love the way that Giannis did it.
Yeah. Also, too, just saw an interesting tweet that the Heat are trying to make a move at Bobby Portis. But speaking of the Bucks, I don't think they're gonna let him go. He was really good for them last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he might not leave. Maybe he sells out for the check, which we do see sometimes. But I really like Bobby Portis with the Bucks. I thought he was a really good backup big.
Yeah, and I thought the love was mutual. I thought, Milwaukee loved him and he loved Milwaukee. It just seemed like I would still be shocked if he left, unless the Heat give him a gargantuan amount of money, which I don't know where they're getting all this money.
They don't have it. They do not have it. That's why I'm kind of confused by this tweet that they're making a move at.
To $90+ million contract in the last hour. Where are they getting all this money from? But
yeah,
I'd be shocked if it was in state Milwaukee.
God, the Heat have spent so much money that they could fix world hunger or something with the money that they spent on their players today. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe somehow they pull it off. Who knows? But I agree with you. I think he's gonna stay there. But I was looking at the Suns a little bit. I want to talk about what went wrong, because let's not forget, while the Bucks did a great job coming back in the series, they also had the Suns on the other end blowing it. And outside of Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul, and a lot of these guys who played so well in the first three series just weren't as consistent and really just struggled against the Bucks. I mean, what do you think kind of happened there? Was it just too much to handle?
I just think the Bucks adjusted and the Suns were never able to adjust. I think the first two games, look at those guys. Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton had great games in those first two games. And then the last four games, the 4 games they all lost, neither of those guys played well. Devin Booker still got his buckets in game 4 and in game 5 and in game 6, but Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton just didn't seem to show up. Chris Paul struggled throughout the last 4 games of that series. He really did offensively. He turned the ball over a lot. He was missing a lot of shots that he usually make. Maybe he got tired. I don't know. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, he is 36 years old. Maybe he got tired. DeAndre Ayton, I think he just met his match. I think Giannis was a great he couldn't stop Giannis in the post. That's for one thing. But I just think he met his match in the post with both Brook Lopez, Giannis, anybody they put on him. I think they just met his match. And in terms of the Suns getting back to the NBA Finals, I don't know, man. I mean, I have my doubts about that team ever getting back to the finals. Yes, I think this was their one chance, to be honest, because the Lakers have re-upped. They've gotten a lot of people. There are not a lot of people. They got Russell Westbrook. They're retooling. They're not trying to go out in the first round again. I think this was the Suns' probably one and only chance. I just don't see a way that they get back. They're able to get through this Lakers team next year, unless barring injury. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, of course, I don't want to say injuries were the reason the Suns went to the NBA Finals, because they were a really good basketball team. But the Lakers, like you said, Matt, are going to be locked and loaded next year. The Clippers are going to have Kawhi Leonard back. The Warriors are going to have Klay Thompson back. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. The Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, maybe they're going to make some more moves like we've seen them do. You have the Nuggets get Jamal Murray back, and they've already made some signings in free agency. The West is tough. This is not easy. There's a lot of really good teams and Utah, you can't count them out either. Yeah. There's about 6-7 teams that have some sort of chance of going to the NBA Finals next year. And the Suns, if they're going to go back again, I think it's going to be way harder.
Yeah, I mean, the Western Conference has been loaded for years, man. Ever since LeBron went out there, ever since Kawhi went out there, it's been a loaded conference. Ever since that, monster team of Golden State got dethroned. But just a couple updates here really quick. Bobby Portis, who we were just talking about, just re-signed with Milwaukee, 2 years, $9 million. And then Furkan Korkmaz, we reported him earlier going to a different team, but he's actually staying with the Sixers. 3 years, $15 million, which is $15 million. I wish.
It's more than Bobby Portis. That's interesting.
I hate that. I hate that with a passion, actually. And Gary Trent Jr. has agreed to a 3-year, $54 million deal to return to the Raptors. I still don't understand the trade the Blazers made to get rid of him, to send him to Toronto, but I think that's a good contract for Gary Trent and the Raptors. That's
true. I did forget they have Gary Trent there. I don't think that should mean that they don't draft Jalen Suggs, but Gary Trent Jr. is pretty good. So that's a nice, good young player that they're able to retain in that deal. And I heard Powell's probably expected to re-sign in Portland. Yeah. But we'll see what happens there. That's what I heard before free agency really kicked off. But yeah, I think that the Suns, they might have their hands full next year. But hopefully all these teams are healthy, because a lot of them were kind of hurt last year. Every team had injuries, so I'm not going to say it was an injury reason why the Bucks won, because even Giannis missed some games, and they lost Dante DiVincenzo for the playoffs. But I definitely think that next year will definitely be a great season. Hopefully, a lot more teams can really compete. But let's look ahead to next season, Matt. One thing we love doing on Ball Don't Lie is making them bold predictions. Give me something you got next year, or pull it out the hat. Come on.
All right, so my NBA Finals matchup next year is probably pretty chalk for most of you guys, but it's Nets Lakers. Simply because ESPN would faint from the amount of storylines in that finals. Milwaukee and Phoenix was a great finals this year, but no doubt they're trying to have a New York versus LA showdown. Russ versus KD would be the storyline. LeBron versus Kyrie would be the storyline.
Oh my god,
it would be an insane storyline.
Does James Harden and Anthony Davis have beef?
They probably will at that point. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll start something up.
I think that would be the ultimate NBA Finals matchup. I think ESPN wants it more than anybody. And then in terms of teams looking to step up, I'm going to keep my eye on the Hornets and Grizzlies as teams to potentially make the next step. Both of them have pretty perpendicular drafts in terms of the Hornets we thought had a really, really good draft, and the Grizzlies not so much. But the Grizzlies did have a really, really good draft last season. So I'm going to look for those two teams to make the next step, make it past the play-in tournament this year maybe. Who knows? And then a big storyline I'm looking at, what are the Warriors like with Klay Thompson coming back this year? Will he ever be the same? Will he still be a good fit with Steph Curry? Will he be able to play throughout the season? Will he be able to play? I don't know. I mean, we don't know what Klay Thompson is. We haven't seen him on the court since Game 6 of the 2019 NBA Finals. It's been a long-ass time without him on the court. I really want to see him succeed. I really love Klay Thompson's game, but I just don't know. I mean, it's been two significant leg injuries the past 2 years. I don't know what it'll be like. I'm interested to see.
That's a really good point. That's definitely one of the storylines I'm looking forward to. It's funny because I also wrote down that I think the Hornets are going to take a big step forward next year, and I think LaMelo Ball is going to be, of course, the biggest reason why. I'm going to say it right now, LaMelo Ball makes the All-Star team next year, second year in the league.
Okay, you didn't say he was MVP. That's a good start, but
I wasn't going that far.
I don't think him being an All-Star is that outlandish. I think it's a it could be a reality, especially if the Hornets are playing well. I think it could be real.
The one thing that I've done well in this podcast is I'm able to predict All-Stars entering the year. First time All-Stars, I'm pretty nice with it. I had Siakam, I had Zion, I had Jaylen Brown, Bam Adebayo. I had all these guys. So it's the one thing I can do. LaMelo Ball is going to be the one who I think makes the All-Star team, and I think the Hornets are going to have a really good season. Another bold prediction I'll say, I'm going to say the Knicks had a fluke year last year and they don't make the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to say they don't make the playoffs.
That's interesting because
someone got to get bounced out. Yeah. And I was very underwhelmed with how they looked in the postseason last year.
Oh, they were terrible.
They were terrible. They didn't look like they belonged.
Oh, they did. They got run out of the gym by the Hawks. I mean, the Hawks ended up being a really, really good team. But at the time, I was shocked. I put money on the Knicks to win that series. And I was shocked with how they played. That they had such a good regular season. They were just so disappointing for the postseason. They just were not ready for prime time. It'll be interesting to see what it's like for them coming into this year. I don't know if – I mean, especially with 10 teams technically making the playoffs with the play-in tournament and all that. I don't know if they necessarily miss it. But they're definitely not going to be a 4 seed, in my opinion. They're definitely
I think there's a lot of teams in the wing that are going to be better. The Bulls might be better. The Hornets we're talking about might be better.
And the Heat have gotten a lot better.
I think the Pacers are going to get better too. They had a pretty rough year last year, and I think under Carlisle they get their act together too. Mm-hmm. I think that the Knicks, I don't know. I think they're going to slide down the standings. Now, if they make like a move to get DeMar DeRozan or they make a really good player, disregard this. This is pretty early on, start free agency. Yeah. But I'm based on how things are looking, I wouldn't be shocked the Knicks they kind of had a fluke year. Another one. Which one do I want to say first? This one's not as bold. I think that Anthony Edwards, that we're talking about the 2020 draft, I think Anthony Edwards is going to have a breakout season and be a fucking monster. I think he's going to average like 24, 25 points per game. I'm not sure he's going to be an all-star. I don't want to say that because like the West is so good, but I think he'll be an all-star caliber player. Okay. I still think there'll be some big holes in his game, but I think Anthony Edwards is extremely talented, and I think the sky's the limit for him.
So I have a question for you about that then, Hunter. If he's going to up his scoring to 24, 25 points per game, what in his scoring is going to improve? I mean, we know he's a freaking getting into the bucket. We saw him improve his three-point shot later in the year. Do you think that's what's going to get him 24, 25 points?
I think so what they got to work on with him is, and it's been the big knack, the thing with Anthony Edwards that's super interesting and I kind of wrote it like in like my scouting it when I was watching him play entering the draft. He like doesn't know how to play basketball. He started playing basketball in like high school. So like his instincts are not great right now. But the more he works, again, I don't know how great his work ethic is. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I don't know. But if it's pretty good, he realizes that he can be great at what he does. He's got crazy confidence too. And the Timberwolves, I think they're just going to let him cook. He was their first pick in the draft. I think first overall pick under Gershon Rosas as well. I think they're just going to let him cook. I think he's going to get a whole lot of points. I don't think they're going to be pretty bad on defense, which usually means they might score a lot on offense. They'll be like the Wizards of the West, I guess. And I think he's going to score a lot. Like you said, the three-point shot is getting better. I think he'll be more efficient with how he gets his points. I expect him to go to the free throw line a lot more because he's 6'5", 225, and has like a 40-inch vertical. So he should be getting to the line a lot. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands a lot more. He was coming off the bench last year, and now he's definitely going to be a starter. I think he's really going to cook.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Timberwolves do. They've been linked to Ben Simmons in terms of a trade package that would probably end up giving up D'Angelo Russell, but wouldn't give up Anthony Edwards. So in that situation, I could totally
Edwards
see
is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I would totally see Edwards scoring going up, especially with a guy like Simmons who doesn't score a lot and facilitates a lot. I could totally see Edwards scoring going up. But even if they do choose to keep their core intact with D'Angelo Russell, Cat, and Anthony Edwards, I do think Edwards' scoring will go up. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to go to 24, 25 points per game yet, but I think he will go up. I think he will definitely improve him.
He averaged almost 20 his rookie year, and he wasn't even starting a lot of those games. So right. I don't know. I think he might cook. I really do. I'm going to see what the shooting numbers is. If he becomes a really efficient scorer, it's over because he's physically probably one of the more gifted players in basketball.
Right,
he's a monster. Now, here's my last one. You're not going to like this one.
I probably won't.
You're definitely not going to like this one. I'm going to say I'm not going to say 100% yet, but watch out for Trae Young in the MVP conversation next year. I'm going to say it right now. Here's the thing. You know me, Matt. I was the biggest Hawks hater entering this season, and I was looking pretty right. And then Nate McMillan took over, and the rest was history. Mm-hmm. I think that the Hawks are extremely deep. I think they're going to be really freaking good next year. I think they might be a top 3 seed in the East potentially. Really? If they have, I really do. I think that they could be really good and cause some problems next year. And if they do that, that means Trae Young's probably having a hell of a year too. And I'm not gonna say yet that's my MVP pick, but I really think that he's gonna be in that conversation. That's gonna be my take.
That's interesting because let's be honest. The Hawks go as Trae Young goes. So if they are a top 3 seed in the East, he's definitely in the MVP conversation. And he had an MVP caliber performance throughout the postseason this past year. So he was really
going out party, man.
I don't know if I'm ready to do. I think that's one of your boldest takes yet, one of the hottest ones you've had. My MVP pick is actually the guy he was traded for, which is Luka Doncic. I know that's more of a safe pick, but
I had him last year, but the Mavs just weren't good enough.
I think he'll be MVP this year. I think if the Mavs are able to even get within top 4 in the West, I think he's the up-and-coming star in the NBA. He's going to be once LeBron retires, once KD gets old, I think he's going to be the face of the NBA. He's already one of the top 10 players in the NBA right now, so I think Luka's my pick for MVP next year. And Rookie of the Year, I'll say Cade Cunningham.
I agree with that one, too.
It's the most chalk pick, but I think he's the most NBA ready, and I think he's going to have the most opportunities of any rookie because the Pistons are going to be like, here, do it.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're going to play him a lot point guard, too, which I think will get his assists up and probably rebounds, too. Dude's like 6'8". So I totally agree with the Cunningham Rookie of the Year pick. I think Suggs could be a nice – or Jalen Green, too. I think those guys could potentially sneak in there. Because I think Jalen Green might score a ton of points. But I'm agree with Cunningham because I think he'll have the more well-rounded game, which is why LaMelo Ball also won it because he was more well-rounded than Anthony Edwards. But I don't know. Watch out for the Hawks, man. You know me, I was hating on them early in the year, but they're keeping just about everybody, especially if Trae Young's still there. If John Collins is still there. I really think – I don't think he's as good as Luka Doncic. I think Luka's a better player, but I don't think the gap is as far as people think it is.
Yeah, it's definitely not as far as it was projected to be when the two teams made that trade a couple years ago. And even as far as last year, people were saying, oh, the Mavericks robbed the Hawks. But I was saying, hold on, Trae Young's still a good player. And Trae Young really balled out in his first postseason, got way farther than everybody else thought they would get. So I'm just not ready to hop on the MVP hype train. But if you're right, Hunter, I'll give you all the props in the world.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's my pick yet, but I don't know. I'm thinking about it recently. But anyways, though, let's look ahead to USA basketball here. A little bit of foreign action going on. Currently, the U.S. they're going to be facing off. I guess you can say their rival at 12:40 a.m. Bright and early or late, however you want to look at it. Against Spain. USA apparently all time is 16-2 in both Olympic and World Cup games against Spain. So it's not particularly close, Matt. But they're rivals, so there's that. KD recently broke Melo's record to become the all-time leading scorer for the U.S. Olympics team. And then also, although they did lose to France, they beat Iran and the Czech Republic pretty convincingly. Do you think that USA's got swagger back? We know they have the talent, even if it's down from maybe previous years. There's still a bunch of all-stars on that fucking team. Do you think that it's still the USA's Olympics to lose, or do you think that they could, in fact, lose it?
I think USA is 100% an upset alert. I think throughout the exhibition games, they just didn't care enough, and I think that's translated over to Tokyo, unfortunately. You look at even the past teams in, 2008, 2012, 2016, those teams barely had to try too, and they still gave 100% effort. They kicked the shit out of all of these teams. They consistently were beating good teams by 20, 30, 40 points. And yeah, the U.S. should be kicking the shit out of Iran and Czech Republic in basketball.
They're pretty
no doubt.
Couldn't name one player on either team.
Lose to France that is headlined by freaking Rudy Gobert and
Evan Fournier, who's not the man.
He's getting a lot of burn on this podcast.
You want them Euros?
Come on, man. I understand the FIBA rules are a little bit different than the NBA, but it's still ball, man. You go put the ball in the ball. You have a roster of 15 players, and legitimately all 15 of them are all-star caliber players, with maybe the exception of Keldon Johnson and JaVale McGee. But listen, the 13 of those players are also they're all all-star players. I don't understand how this team it's just the lack of cohesion, the lack of probably caring and giving a shit because they're not getting paid for this. And this is the country pride is just not there, and maybe it is for these other teams like Australia, France, Spain, even Slovenia, the fighting Luka Doncic's. This is those teams seem to have a lot more country pride and a lot more, quite frankly, give a shit. They actually care about winning these games. They care about representing their country. And the U.S. just doesn't seem to have that right now. So they can have all the swagger they want. They just don't have. They just don't care. It doesn't seem like.
I'm gonna say this: Team USA misses Kobe. He kind of changed the way, because in 2004, it was the same thing, that they just didn't care. And then eventually that kind of led to the downfall of USA only winning bronze in 2004. And Kobe got there and was like, nah, we're giving a shit. We're going to fucking go for it. And they won 8, 12, 16 under Coach K. Uh-huh. And then I'm not going to blame Greg Popovich. Ooh, interesting. Speaking of the Spurs, they're going to sign Zach Collins at $22 million.
That's disgusting.
Interesting. Okay. So another guy who I didn't think we'd mention there. But anyways, yeah, who's the guy on that team? I mean, I would assume it's Damian Lillard, if that, who's just we got to get our shit together. We got to fucking go out there and win. KD's the leader in terms of the best player on the team, and I think they all kind of understand that. But I don't know. Is there the guys that absolute driving force that's getting under each other's skin? It doesn't really seem like it.
No, I mean, it just seems like none of them are going to be able to call each other out and just, ultimately, like I've said repeatedly, they just
off Kevin Durant.
Yeah, KD's not going to call out anybody. What happened?
Trevor Ariza going to the Lakers.
Oh, there you go, Hunter. I heard that rumor. I heard he was rumored there. I'm assuming it's probably going to be for a pretty cheap contract because
1 year deal. Yeah.
Yeah, the Lakers have no money, but he's going back to where
Pelinka was actually his agent, so that's pretty interesting. So there's the connection there. He also won a championship with the Lakers in 2009. Yep. So yeah, he's going back to LA. I think it's a great signing for them. Pretty low money. I'm assuming it's going to be for the vets minimum, and he fills what they need, which is a guy who can hit threes and play defense.
Play a decent amount of defense. Let's not be crazy here. He is getting up there in age, but
he's got the weird hair now. He's got dreads.
Listen, Trevor Ariza is still a baller, man. You put him in the corner, the 3-point corner. He's gonna hit his threes over there, man. So I think that's exactly what a LeBron type team needs. Has he ever played with LeBron, Trevor Ariza?
I don't think so.
No, perfect. This seems like the perfect LeBron guy that has never played with LeBron. This should be great.
Yeah, it should be great. Yeah, it really does seem like a perfect fit. But unlike the USA team, which it doesn't really seem like a perfect fit. But transitioning, of course, we gotta end our show like we always do, given our All NBA teams. Me and Matt, we're kind of debating about what to give you guys, but we decided to give the All NBA free agency moves team. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but each of us came up with a list. Matt actually had a pretty fun time making this list.
So did I.
5 of the best signings that really kind of changed basketball, and some of our favorites as well. So, Matt, what made the list for you here?
So this my first one is a trio that probably changed free agency and changed the NBA for the good. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh.
I would love you said something like, wasn't that? I mean, what the fuck?
It's Furkan Korkmaz going back to the Sixers. No, just kidding. It's LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh going to the Heat. Changed the NBA landscape as we know it forever. As Draymond Green told LeBron pretty publicly, he created the super team, bro. And in a lot of ways, he's right. You know, there was the Boston Celtics' first really big three with Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, but the Celtics traded for those guys. They didn't come over in free agency. These were the guys that said, look, we have the control over this, and we're going to do this. We're going to team up. We're going to take maybe less money than we can get other places to play together and win a championship. They got the big three. They got 2 championships out of it. And with the 3 of them together, they made the NBA Finals every year. It changed the landscape of the NBA forever.
Yeah, I wrote something kind of similar. In my notes, I just wrote LeBron.
Yeah, pretty much
all the moves
LeBron has ever made. Yeah,
and the reason why you talk about what free agent has changed the course of the NBA more than LeBron. He goes to the Heat, wins 2 championships. Goes to the Cavs, wins a championship. Goes to the Lakers, wins a championship. All those via free agency. You talk about player mobility. LeBron James, like you just said, completely changed the landscape of basketball. I'll even take a step further from the big 3 because he personally went to different teams and won championships. We've never seen a player do it. Kawhi Leonard's got a chance to do it, I guess, if he's able to win one with the Clippers, to be a guy who's been the best player on 3 different championship teams. But other than that, LeBron kind of paved the way for that. And it's definitely had a trickle-down effect in so many ways because players now don't feel like they have to stay with the team that drafted them. And even high school players are now going to the G League instead of going to college, or going overseas or whatever. There's just so many avenues, and I honestly do think that LeBron, his ability to do that and to go to different teams, it's honestly, I feel like what LeBron has done going to 3 different teams, I mean, you can argue maybe the Heat because, they were the big 3, but, going to 2 teams that were garbage before he got there and winning championships, I think is just as impressive as someone who stayed with their team for a long time and won a championship. I think that's also equally impressive.
Well, let's be real here about that, Hunter. When he went to the Cavs and when he went to the Lakers, it was Le GM that took over. It wasn't LeBron. So Le GM.
GM.
So, he got the team that he wanted around him. Sure, they were in various locations, but he got the team he wanted around him. He got his Anthony Davis. He got Kyrie. He got the Cavs to get Kevin Love. He got the Lakers to get Anthony Davis. This is, that's what LeBron does. He's not going anywhere to play by himself. He's getting the cavalry together. He's getting guys to come with him. And in terms of, you said players that make moves that change the NBA landscape forever. I think the only one that we can probably equate to even close to that, and we brought it up a little bit earlier, was KD to the Warriors in 2016. July 4th, 2016, I know exactly where I was when it happened because I got the news, I got the notification. I was like...
He had what was it called? The My Decision with his arms crossed?
Yeah, which has now become a meme in Twitter. But
I love how it's supposed to be such a serious thing, and then, of course, we memed it.
Whenever Kevin Durant loses a game, it's like my next chapter.
That was it.
But yeah, that Kevin Durant decision, he was the next player on my list. It ruined the NBA for a couple of years. I'm not gonna lie about it. I mean, it really did because there was no parity anymore. It was just you can pencil the Warriors into the finals every year he was there, and they did it. I mean, they got to the finals every year he was there, and that wasn't a coincidence. I mean, he joined a team that was 73-9. Didn't need him at all, and he went there and made them a legitimate super team, and that's when Draymond said, "You created the super team, bro," to LeBron. But KD, I mean, it just will go down as probably one of the softest decisions of all time in terms of free agency, one of the most cupcake moves of all time, which has also been fairly public to say. Even with him going to the Nets now, I mean, a couple of years ago he went to the Nets, and that changed the landscape of the NBA because Kyrie Irving went there. Now the Nets are a super team with James Harden, and they scooped up every free agent that got cut by their team this year in the middle of the year. So I think Kevin Durant is the next guy there that, other than LeBron, that changes the NBA landscape forever.
I absolutely agree. That also was on my list for all those reasons, with Kevin Durant just being like, yeah, fuck you all. I'm going to go win championships. And, well, it's almost like, but at what price? He did what he was set out to do. And we'll see if he's able to win one in Brooklyn. But now he has maybe even a more stacked big three with James Harden and Kyrie Irving. So it's like, again, go fucking figure. But anyways, though, since we're kind of 2 for 2 on our picks, I'll let you go again.
So my next one, you'll probably love this one, Hunter. This was probably one of the first big, huge, earth-shattering moves in free agency, and that was Shaq to the Lakers in 1996. He would get paired up with this guy named Kobe. I don't know if you know him, but he would go on to win 3 straight finals with the Lakers from 2000 to 2002. Won finals MVP in all 3 of those finals wins, by the way. Won a regular season MVP in 2000 and became so utterly dominant that teams would game plan ways to slow him down specifically, such as Hack-a-Shaq. But it ultimately didn't really work with Shaq until teams used that strategy against Ben Simmons. But it really didn't work against Shaq because he was just so dominant in other facets of the game. It was one of the first huge free agent signings in NBA history.
It really was, and I also had that on my list because it did really change the landscape.
I'll let you go next then, because I keep stealing yours. I'll let you go.
Okay, well, I also will say, speaking of the Lakers, they just signed Wayne Ellington. I actually think it's a nice signing for them. Shot 42%. Yeah, 42% from 3 last year for the Detroit Pistons. So now he can actually hopefully do that for a good basketball.
And he's probably on a pretty cheap deal too, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything deal-wise, but I believe it's reported by Chris Haynes, killing it out here. He's got some pretty good ones. Yeah, I mean, he's a great reporter, but we always talk about Shams and Woj, but Chris Haynes hanging with the goats out here. So give the man the credit he deserves. Next on my list, I wonder if you have this one. Steve Nash of the Suns in 2004. Oh my fucking god! I thought that was gonna be a good one. I have one more goodie in here. We go 5 for 5. I'd be shocked. Yeah, but Steve Nash, Mark Cuban said this was the biggest mistake of his career, letting Steve Nash walk. They were concerned with how his body was going to hold up. Him and Dirk were great together. But Steve Nash's best years came in Mike D'Antoni in that offense. He won 2 MVPs. We can argue if he deserved them or not. I say no. But he's still a Hall of Fame point guard. He changed the trajectory of the Phoenix Suns. They had one of the more fun offenses we've seen in quite some time there. They played a lick of defense. Perhaps they could have won a championship.
Yeah, I was about to say all of those things. I mean, he was on the, from the Mavericks perspective, that, he was about to turn 30. They didn't want to sign him to a big contract on the wrong side of 30 years old, but it was the biggest mistake they've, like Cuban said, probably he's ever made, letting him go. They made 3 trips to the Western Conference Finals, but unfortunately for them, like you said, they couldn't play a lick of defense, and it really screwed them over in the long run. But Steve Nash, the Suns, one of the great ones as well in 2004.
Yeah, I thought I may have gotten you on that one, but nope. All right, so we're 4 for 4. Matt, well, let's see. Are we going 5 for 5?
I highly doubt it, because this is just the 2016 class in general. And I'll tell you why I have this. Because outside of KD, it was the most absurdly overvalued free agency class in NBA history, and it changed the course of the league forever in terms of the salary cap. This was the class that Chandler Parsons got a $94 million deal. Joakim Noah and Luol Deng scored.
Oh, no, don't say Luol Deng. Don't say Timothy Mozgov's name in vain.
Timothy Mozgov became a $64 million player overnight. In the first minute of free agency, he signed a $64 million deal with the Lakers.
Oh, my God. Oh,
Tyler Johnson was a restricted free agent and emerged with a $50 million offer sheet. This was when the NBA this was when the new salary cap came out, and the NBA just went berserk, signing a bunch of guys to ridiculous deals like this. And it's changed the NBA forever, because now you guys have guys like Kelly Olynyk getting $37 million a year, and Furkan Korkmaz getting $50 million a year. Guys that, quite frankly, don't deserve all that money, but are getting it anyway.
My God, yeah, I do remember how crazy it was, because KD didn't sign until a couple of days after, because he was doing the whole Hamptons shit. He's fucking Long Island, causing ruckus and whatever. But yeah, I was just like, I was ready to kill myself. I shouldn't say that, but I was like, what are we doing? Please stop this. Please, I'm going to pull my hair out.
Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov, man.
The Lakers had all this cap space. They're like, oh, let's just spend it on these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two of the worst contracts in NBA history, arguably. Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov.
Oh, my God. The fact they got off them was somehow ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they did. The Deng one was a mess. So we did not go 5 of 5, went 4 of 5. I would have been shocked if he had this one. Dr. J going from the ABA to the Philadelphia 76ers.
I almost put that on there. I almost did.
Did you? Oh, my God.
But I didn't put it on there.
Thank God. Yeah, we almost went 5 for 5 on a pretty obscure list. I think the first two were maybe 3 with LeBron, KD, and Shaq. Like, those ones are kind of a given. But yeah, the other two, I was like, I might get him on this. I'm like, nope, okay. But yeah, Dr. J going from the New York Nets, straight out of Nassau Coliseum, Long Island's finest, going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Dr. J was probably not arguably, he was the greatest, I think, ABA player of all time. And then eventually brings that swagger and that cool kind of play to the NBA, that playground kind of basketball, and definitely left his impact there. Ends up winning a championship with the Philadelphia 76ers and being, when you really think about it, one of the most accomplished basketball players of his generation.
Oh, absolutely. And he had, like you said, he was one of those players that just glided through the air. I mean, we've all seen the rock the baby to sleep dunk and the underneath the backboard, like you say there. I almost put him on my list, like I said, but him and Moses Malone actually were two of the biggest first free agents.
Moses as well.
Moses Malone in 1982. Those were two guys that were two core pieces of the Sixers winning the championship in 1983. One of the biggest transition moves in all time. That was back when the ABA and NBA were separated still, like you said. So him coming over to the NBA at that time was a huge deal for the NBA and a huge deal for the Sixers, and it resulted in a championship, like you said.
Yeah, there's a good documentary called Semi-Pro out there, which will definitely highlight all the all the struggles.
Yeah, it's quite the documentary.
Yeah, it is based on a true story. It actually happened. There was someone named Jackie Moon and Coffee Black out there.
Yeah,
they did in fact trade their washing machine. Actually, there's a whole Kyle Korver thing where they traded like the printing machine. For something. Yeah. Like it actually did kind of happen in real life.
That was crazy.
Kyle Korver went on to have a pretty good career. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up here on Ball Don't Lie. I'm glad, Matt, we were able to break down a lot of stuff. I want to see if there's anything more that's happened. Dwight Howard to the Lakers. We called that on here. We said that earlier.
We said that 2 hours ago.
Yeah, we did say it 2 hours ago. So Solomon Hill staying with the Hawks, and that's all I really got. But yeah, the Lakers, turning back the clock a little bit, potentially getting Melo and Dwight. But it's definitely a good sign for the Lakers there. But yeah, to anybody who was leaving comments and stuff like that, appreciate it. This does stay on YouTube, so if you did not catch it, that's okay. You can rewatch all the madness that happened, and we'll see you next time we get on here.
Thank you. See you.